A lot happened in the past 2 days in the fight world, most importantly in the UFC rankings and featherweight title picture. So let's start our video with the most important topic. Official UFC rankings have been updated after UFC 308 and Ilia Topuria stands firm at number 4 despite knocking out Max Holloway in his first title defense. He was already not happy with Dana White only giving him a 50k bonus for knocking out Max Holloway, so I'm sure he's not gonna like this update as well. Four-time boxing world champion Carl Froch was seriously impressed with Ilia Topuria's boxing skills at UFC 308, and former middleweight champion Michael Bisping calls Ilia Topuria's left hook better than Alex Pereira's. He says Pereira has God-gifted power, but the technique with which Topuria delivers chaos is perfect. By the way, it seems Ilia Topuria has leapfrogged Alex Pereira, who defended his belt thrice this year with 3 spectacular KOs for the Fighter of the Year. Most of the fans and journalists favor Ilia Topuria because of his level of competition in his 2 fights. Former bantamweight champions Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley both believe they have what it takes to beat Ilia Topuria. Aljo says when he gets the title shot after beating Movsar Evloev, he ain't gonna try to strike with him as other fighters do, while O'Malley's coach Tim Welch says that O'Malley would give Topuria problems with his range, speed and his overall skill set. O'Malley also says he's going to climb the ladder and earn a super fight with Ilia Topuria. But that time is far away. Their names are not even in the hat as Topuria's next potential opponent. So let's talk about those who really have the potential to become Topuria's next opponent. Topuria's coach Joe Tomasi wants to see him fight and submit the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev next and become the double champion. If he really fights and finishes lightweight champion Islam Makhachev, it is going to be epic. On the other hand, Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo in their podcast called for the UFC to book Ilia Topuria vs Conor McGregor at lightweight division at a stadium in Spain. Usman believes Topuria can really become the next Conor McGregor for the UFC. Conor McGregor is, by the way, retired again for the 869th time in response to a fan's comment on Twitter. Anyway, Ariel Helwani then asked Alexander Volkanovski if he would prefer waiting for Topuria fight even if it takes longer or staying active is more important for him. Volkanovski said he hopes UFC can make it happen early next year, so he is waiting. Helwani brought Diego Lopez too on his show, who was the backup for UFC 308 title fight, and most fans thought he's next in the line instead of Volkanovski. Lopez shares his thoughts on the show and said that in the current scenario where his name is not being even mentioned for the undisputed title shot, he would like to fight Alex Volkanovski for the interim featherweight championship at UFC 312 in Sydney, Australia. You guys may think that an interim featherweight title doesn't make any sense, but it does, because Whittaker and Adesanya both are not in a position to headline a pay-per-view. Volkanovski is the only Australian in the UFC who can now headline UFC 312 in Sydney. Now let's move back towards rankings updates. Max Holloway drops 1 spot to number 12 in the pound-for-pound rankings while stays at number 2 in the featherweight rankings after losing to Ilia Topuria. Dan Ige also stays at number 14 in the featherweight division despite his loss to Lerone Murphy at UFC 308. Lerone Murphy, on the other hand, moves up 1 spot, settling at number 11. Murphy believes he is 2 big wins away from fighting for the featherweight belt. He hopes he gets a matchup with one of Josh Emmett or Brian Ortega next. Big moves at middleweight rankings following UFC 308, with Khamzat Chimaev moving up 10 spots and settling into number 3 position following his first round submission win over Robert Whittaker. Chimaev's longtime rival Paulo Costa reacts to this shakeup in the rankings and says he is no longer angling for a fight with Khamzat Chimaev, but instead wants a return against any in the top 15 by February. And Khamzat's former opponent Kamaru Usman says that Chimaev should get the title shot now. Usman believes that Khamzat is too dangerous in round 1 and that he can do to Dricus du Plessis what he did to Robert Whittaker. Contrary to the former champion, Caio Borralho wants to see Khamzat Chimaev do a little more at 185. He wants to see Sean Strickland get the title shot and wanna be the backup for that fight. By the way, Khamzat Chimaev was not the only cause for the shakeup in the middleweight rankings after UFC 308. After a massive knockout at UFC 308, Sharabuddin Magomedov also debuted at number 14, forcing Chris Curtis off the list. Shara's coach says they will fight in Saudi Arabia on February 1st next. It doesn't matter who the opponent will be, but the date is set. Light heavyweight rankings saw a little change after UFC 308. Khalid Rountree Jr. now tied at number 6 and Dominic Reyes now tied at number 12, each moves up one slot. And Magomed Ankalaev, after beating Alexander Rakic, is now alone in the number 1 contender slot. He was previously tied with Jiri Prochazka, who also shares a picture on his Insta account starting the fight camp for his next fight. Magomed Ankalaev responds to Jamal Hill's criticism of his fight at UFC 308 with a cold line reminding him of his KO loss to Alex Pereira. He says he doesn't feel any threat in this division and could even go up to heavyweight and be a threat there. But still, the next step is light heavyweight title shot and he won't stop calling for his shot until he gets it. He again called out the champ, this time reminding him of his KO loss to the skinny guy Israel Adesanya and threatening him to do worse. His manager Ali Abdulaziz also says that his fighter will definitely knock out Alex Pereira. Anyway, last update from updated UFC rankings is also about the skinny guy who returns at number 15 in the pound for pound rankings. Charles Oliveira departs the list just half a month before his fight at UFC 309. Did I mention UFC 309? Oh, we also have a huge update about UFC 309 headliner Jon Jones. NM judge ruled the misdemeanor charges including assault against UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones will be dismissed if he completes 4 hours of anger management and obeys laws for 90 days. The terms were reached as part of a plea adjudication diversion agreement. Jon Jones agrees to attend anger management classes to resolve his charges and then thanked the justice system for reaching a prompt resolution in this matter, which affirms his innocence and enables him to maintain his focus on the upcoming fight. By the way, former UFC fighter Darren Till goes off on the UFC and Dana White for putting Stipe Miocic against Jon Jones. He asked Dana White on behalf of all fans to make the Jon Jones vs Francis Ngannou super fight. Now let's move towards new fight announcements. A big heavyweight fight is announced today for UFC Saudi Arabia on February 1st, 2025, where top 10 heavyweights Sergey Pavlovich and Jair Zinho Rozenstruik will collide. Johnny Walker will fight Bogdan Guskov at UFC 311 on January 18th. Sean Woodson will fight Fernando Padilla at UFC Tampa on December 14th. Mauricio Rafi will now fight James Lallentop at UFC 309 on November 16th after his original opponent Charlie Campbell pulled out. And Marlon Vera called out Henry Cejudo for a fight in the upcoming UFC Mexico card. And that's all for now. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the fight world. Now I'll see you tomorrow in the next video, so till then, do whatever you want.